Hey, it's Noelle Bloom here, and welcome to Bloom TV. You're in the right place if you want to create a business that makes a difference and live a fabulous life. Do you dream of the day that you can finally quit your 9-to-5 job to do the work you love? If you've been seriously considering quitting your 9-to-5 job to work on your business full-time, this episode is for you. I'm going to sit down and talk with a very special guest, and her name is Tamika Lewis. She is a licensed clinical social worker and licensed psychotherapist who helps women and teens overcome anxiety, stress, and chronic self-doubt. She helps people effectively move through trauma and loss so that they can experience more joy and success in life. And she's going to open up and share how she's been able to quit her 9-to-5 job to work in her business full time. And something that you're going to learn is that quitting your 9-to-5 job does not have to feel like a big, scary, risky leap. Okay. Instead, it can feel like a natural next step in the right direction. And she's going to share exactly how you can do that. So I'd love for you to join us in this conversation where we share how you can ultimately quit your 9-to-5 job and do the work you love full time. So let's dive in. Tamika, thank you so much for joining me today on Bloom TV.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So happy about this.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this conversation because I know there's so much talk about people taking the leap to leave their 9-to-5 and to sometimes they're starting a business, sometimes they've been growing it on the side. But I see that there's a lot of different ways that people are doing this. And I think the way that you've done it is very smart and strategic, even if you didn't kind of think back then, I'm going to do this big strategy. But I think the way you handled it and the way it's felt like sort of like a next step and not so much like a leap or a jump. I'd love to know more about how you've done that. And so you can share that with us. So I'd love to start off by hearing how you started your first business and why.
I run a private practice, therapy practice that I opened back in 2013. And really when I first started my practice, I was working full time at the job I'm currently at as a high school counselor. And I really started it just as something to do on the side. And of course, working with teens and women, which is my passion. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But what ended up happening, because I was actually trying to get some other business ideas off the ground, like a blog I was working on. But then a year into my practice, I was like getting all this momentum and, traffic, and I was really growing this practice. And then by year 2, I would say I had matched the income that I was making at my 9-to-5, working half the time in my practice. And then I realized I have a situation on my hands. I really had to start thinking about making a break from, kind of the traditional 9-to-5, which I wasn't really ready yet to really think about. And I would say that was really kind of the first snag that I hit at that point when I realized I was being really successful, was just kind of overcoming, I call it kind of the man blues. Like when you worked for the man for so long, you worked like in a corporate setting. Yeah, it's really hard to consider an alternate path. And I knew though that because of my practice growing, I knew I was doing really important work and that I needed to be there and be of service. And so I needed to make some changes.
Yeah. Is that leading up to today, how you've been feeling, or is this?
Yeah, I would say this was probably about a year ago, 14, 15, 16, about 2016. What happened was, and this is something that I will say for people who are feeling really anxious in their 9-to-5 and they're wanting to take that leap, but they can't. You can start planting kind of strategic seeds. So I A couple things. One, I really made sure that I surrounded myself with other women who were also entrepreneurs, or who were, kind of going after professional goals that were even bigger than they could even imagine. And that really normalized, my experience, and made me feel like I can do this. I got this. And then secondly, Tim Ferriss talks about this in the 4-Hour Work Week, where it's like imagining the unthinkable in your current work setting. So it might look like going in and making a request, to maybe telecommute, or in my case, I asked if I could go part-time in my position, which I work for a school district. That's like unheard of.
Yeah.
But because I feel like I had built the credibility and I had kind of done the work and, laid the groundwork, I felt pretty confident in going in with that ask.
Yeah.
And so I was able to go part-time and then shift some of that energy over and really get my business going even stronger.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a common theme I see that many people actually do, is kind of go to their employer and say, hey, can I cut back a little bit? And I think it never hurts to ask, right? The worst that can happen is they say no, but I think just going for it and seeing where it goes is amazing. And it's a good opportunity to see what type of things can come from it. And so back to finding a group of people to support you. I remember, so Andrea, which is a mutual friend of ours. So way back when I was just starting, we were in like the mastermind group, and I remember teaching it was kindergarten, right? For the first time. And that was when I knew that, okay, I'm building this business and it was time for me to start bringing in income and getting something real besides my business so I can, feed myself and pay my bills. And I was so excited the night before. I couldn't sleep. I was like, I'm still going to teach kindergarten. And I had my first day, and it was the roughest day ever. And I came home and I took a nap, and I think I cried a little bit. And then I got inside the group and I was like, ladies, I was like, I do not know how long I can take this. I'm freaking done. There were like 35 kids who weren't listening. And looking back, it was really funny, but in the moment I told myself, I cannot do this like another day. And I felt, and I actually did it for 2 or 3 years after that. So it's just like, if you're in that 9-to-5 job and you, I think many of us will get to the point to where we are like, just anxiety. And I was just starting, and I had so much more to go. And I think I remember going into the group like a year later, and I was like, remember when I put that post that I was just like done, and I just imagined doing this for like a week, and you just kind of get used to it. If
you're driving to work and you're banging your head on the steering wheel, then that's a really good sign that like there's no other way. You're getting to that point of really being done,
Yeah.
And then I'm sure it happened to you where you start to see signs, you start to see things showing up for you that are making it very clear that, that this new path will be blessed. You just have to kind of trust and go for it,
Yeah, I love that. And I agree with that. I think when we have that awareness and we are in tune with what's going on in our business and our life, and like you said, when we last talked, looking for those opportunities, and things start to happen to where you just can't ignore it, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I think that while you're, and you could probably relate. So I probably just hit that point maybe this last year. And that's why in May will be my last month at the school district. I'm moving on. But I realized up until that point, I was still able to maximize what my work, the 9-to-5 could offer me. Like I really tried to make sure that I took advantage of whatever skills and whatever experiences that I could maybe pull into my business. And I know Marie Forleo talks about this, like you can't be in your work environment with kind of, being funky and not really feeling good about that, and then step over into your business and think that you're going to be able to like switch channels. So you've got to really try to operate at a similar frequency in your work environment so that so it feels kind of seamless, But then, like you said, you hit that point where you cannot fake it anymore.
Yeah.
And you got to make some changes.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what's happened.
Yeah, I love that. And I think for me, after the whole kindergarten thing, I just realized that it just was not in my skill set to deal with that many kids that young.
Mm-hmm.
And although they are adorable, the thought of it was just like, I'm going to be the best. And I couldn't be the best because they're just running around. And I noticed that teaching kindergarten and first grade, it was a big difference. When I started to teach first grade, they knew the systems already. So, first kindergarten is just like they just got thrown into school, right? If they didn't go to school. So it was different. And then eventually I went on and then did completely high school, which was a lot better for me because it was easier. So, so I think for many people, maybe if they are in the 9-to-5 job, if they were like me in kindergarten and you knew that it was just you have to have a job as you're building your business on the side, and if you are just like, I just cannot go another day, maybe you can switch and do something else, even with you building your business on the side. Because for me, I knew that I was going to have to work for a while to feed just to get my business going, and I needed some work that didn't feel like it was sucking my soul completely. But that I was still making a difference and showing up, like you said, showing up for your job also, and not just like half-assing it sort of for your job and then having to go to your business and, show up in that way. So for people who maybe are in a soul-sucking, you just can't even do it every day, and you need time to build your business, it could be a good thing to start looking at something else. And that's a transition within itself. But I think for many people, when they're in a job that they absolutely hate, it's hard to be in it for the long run. If you are feeling deteriorated every day, you can't show up, right?
Yeah. And I think that comes back to kind of the scarcity mindset. And, just looking at the mind and what happens when you get kind of stuck in the scarcity mindset, parts of your brain, the creative parts of your brain even sort of shut down, and you can't really innovate. And so it's hard to even think about something different, so no matter what situation you're in, there's always an alternate route. But we do have to practice things that keep those parts of our brains, activated, whether it's, making sure that you're having fun, on the weekends, if you're in that 9-to-5 grind, doing things that are playful and that are spontaneous, just to kind of keep you on your toes in that way,
Yeah, I agree with you. So along the way, has there been any setbacks? Or no, first let's talk about you working your 9-to-5 job, and then you building the business, and then you being a mom. What was that experience trying to do all of that and sort of planting the seeds or thinking strategically about growing your business?
Well, I think the biggest thing was, as a mom, and I'm a single mom, which meaning I don't have, there's no shared custody. I am the sole provider. And so I really did need to cover my bases as far as, health insurance and making sure that there was stability in that way. And I think the biggest thing for me is just, practicing like self-kindness and patience around that process, because I'm a very ambitious person, and I wanted to just grind and make stuff happen. But my kids are also, along the ride, and I needed them to feel that I was present and that I was, taking care of my responsibilities, So I think, again, I just surrounded myself with other moms who were also entrepreneurs, and that is the running kind of dialogue, is just how do we balance all of this, and how do we do it in a way that we still love ourselves and we love our kids. So I think, community is huge, and exercise, making sure that, I'm just getting some of that stress out so that I can make better decisions. And it helps that I really love what I do. I really love the work that I do in my practice, and it just helps me to just be a better, happier person.
Yeah. Okay. And so the theme of community always comes up. And I know building a business without that is just it's so lonely when you don't have a group of people who are doing not only similar work, but who are ambitious and high achieving and sort of in the game of creating a business for themselves. Not having that people, that commonality, it feels lonely, and it sort of feels like no, people don't get you, right? Because you can talk about things and people don't really understand, maybe your friends or, a family. So having that mutual understanding and seeing other people go for it has definitely been a motivator for me. And it makes the process a little bit easier. So, um, along the way, in specific, were there any situations maybe that arose where you kind of maybe felt like you wanted to give up, or did you always have the drive that you were going to do this work and eventually take the leap?
Yeah. Well, there were a couple things that happened, really kind of critical moments, especially like around my divorce.
Yeah.
And literally like losing, everything as far as like, losing my condo and losing, even friends. And I also at the time got laid off. And I will say that was probably the spark of entrepreneurial, that energy in me, realizing that we can't feel so codependent on a corporate kind of traditional job. And I learned that. And a couple miracle things sort of happened that made me realize like I was going to be okay. And one of them was, I was moving out of my condo. It came to a point where I was in the survival mode, and I had to sell my wedding ring, which was a very dramatic experience, just that it all kind of came to this point. And I ended up going into a coin shop where the man that I sold my ring to, he ended up buying my ring. So he gave me money for that. But then he took an interest in what was going on in my life. And I ended up sitting in this man's coin shop for 3 to 4 hours, talking to him about, he was a very skilled, successful businessman. He had a daughter my age. I think he was just interested in like, what's going on? Let me hear your story and let me see if I can help you out. And so ultimately this stranger, and I always share this story because it's so touching. He ended up, buying my ring, but he ended up giving me close to $8,000 to move out of my condo and into a new house. He had his company come in and move us, and, there were no strings attached.
Yeah.
There were miracle moments that happened throughout these real low points that made me know you're going to be okay, and you just got to keep going. And I just read this quote that said, we often think that we're human beings having spiritual experiences, but what if we are spiritual beings having a human experience? And if that is the case, then that means that we have an inherent power and divine power, and there's an infinite kind of quality in all of us. It's just about staying plugged into that rather than staying plugged into, I guess, kind of ego or fear, right? Mm-hmm. And that is really the thing that has kind of carried me through, because quite frankly, what I manage to some people appears like superhuman, I mean, just the stamina that it takes to hold this down and to make sure I have healthy kids and that I'm sane. The only way it's possible is for me to understand that I am maybe first a spiritual being, and that I have tremendous power.
I love that. I don't know. Do you know who said the quote?
It was a French philosopher. I actually, yeah, let me
Oh,
see.
what? Oh, was it? I remember Wayne Dyer saying the quote before,
Yeah.
but I don't know if he was
Oh,
the mastermind
okay.
behind that. So,
French philosopher, priest Pierre Chardin. I think that's how you pronounce
okay.
it. Yeah, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So that situation when you got the divorce and you lost, friends and just the life that you were living, is that what spurred you to spurred you along to start your business? Was that like the event? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I think right before that happened, so it came out of necessity, right? Because I lost my day gig. So I was like, I need to start getting creative. And I knew I was going to always get licensed, but I didn't know that would be the business that would kind of give me the security, right? But I think what really triggered my interest in focusing on teens and women, just because I grew up, like I was a tortured soul as a teen. And I grew up with a single mom and struggling to kind of feel normal in my skin.
Yeah.
And just not knowing always if everything was going to be okay. And I remember it was like these one or two adults that came into my life and just, said one or two things, and it really lit me up. It empowered me. And I thought, I really want to be able to kind of give that back. And that's really why I went into working in high schools, and why in my practice today, I work mostly with teens. Women, I'm very committed to freeing us women. In college, I had a roommate who she ended up taking her life. And Heidi was someone who was, perfectionist, did, good grades, really, bubbly personality, really tried to present one way on the outside, but at home and in our dorm, I would see a totally different woman. And and I didn't really pry, because I just thought, it's not my business. But I remember that vividly, and finding out that happened, I was really struck by that. And then a few years later, my other friend in grad school, who was also highly ambitious, working on her PhD, I mean, just so dynamic, also took her life. And I thought, what is going on? It scared the shit out of me, because all of us are privy to being on the edge, right? And we're really good at pretending and kind of saving face, and meanwhile everything is just like a hot mess inside. And I just feel really strongly about ending the cycle of that. And I think the women that I work with in my practice tend to be women who are also really ambitious and strong, but they're struggling, and they need a space to just feel okay about that.
Yeah. Wow, that's like a whole nother conversation that we should be having, because I think that this brings it's a little off topic here, but it's really not, because I think that many of us do try to hold it together, and there's been times where I've been trying to hold it together, and it's just like it's really not happening.
Yeah.
And I think if you front for so long, then it leads to other very scary things. And I think that's why it's so important for us to be open and to share. And life is not all roses and rainbows, especially owning a business and entrepreneurship, or just being a mom, right?
Yeah.
And every different stage of our life, there's different challenges. And I think the work that you do is so beautiful. I didn't know all of that. So it's always amazing to see why people start their businesses and sort of what's the fire behind everything. And so thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So we talked about laying the groundwork. So can you tell me specifically maybe 2 or 3 things that you did along the way to lay that groundwork, so that quitting your 9 to 5 job more felt like a natural step in the right direction than
Yeah.
you leaping? Because I hear a lot of people talking about, you have to take the leap. And sometimes
Yeah.
I've heard people actually saying, hey, just quit your job, just go ahead and quit. That way you have the space and the time to commit to that. But I know that that can be a dangerous thing for some people. But I would love to
Yeah.
know, what type of things did you do to lay that foundation for the long term?
So, while you're pushing through the 9 to 5, it's important to network and make sure that you're building relationships that are going to serve your business. So I intentionally meet with people, experts, kind of out in the community and schools and, lunch dates, and just, I'm always thinking about how these relationships come back to sustaining my business, right? Because the scary thing is, you leave a secure thing and you might be doing well. I'm doing well in my practice right now. The key right now is for me to really be focusing on sustainability and understanding kind of the formula to the success.
Yeah.
And one of the keys to that formula is relationships, because people will send people your way. People will recommend your products, or, that's just kind of the nature of good business, is that kind of word of mouth marketing. I was very slow to make, so for example, I waited before I got my own office, before just even logistics of setting up my office. I wanted to fill out different areas and communities and get a sense of just demographic and flow, right? And so some people might just set up shop and not understand the demographics or the needs of the community.
Oh,
And
wow. So
so,
smart. I love that. Okay.
so now I now have my own office,
Yeah.
and I feel confident about now having that new responsibility of overhead,
Yeah.
because I feel like I have clarity about who my people are and where I'm going to draw them from, and how I will sustain that business.
Yeah. I remember back in the day, I think you posted a video of your office at work,
Oh
and
yeah.
oh my, it was so decked out. I think
My
I was taking snapshots of it and I was just like, oh my God, this is like the bombest office like
yeah.
ever. You had like stuff on the walls. It didn't even look like a cubicle anymore. There was like a little, there's like I don't know what was
Yes.
the center of it, but it was just,
I've got a little, that's another thing. If you're in your 9 to 5 and you have a cubicle or an office and you have any sort of freedom, deck it out, because that's the space that you have to be in. And so I got rid of all that district furniture. I went down to the thrift store.
yeah,
I went to Target. I did whatever I could to bring me
yeah.
into the space, and also to create the space that, where I felt the same frequency, right? That I wanted to feel as an independent entrepreneur. So it had to be inspiring. I couldn't work in and even with, because I did that cubicle, the principal actually had me design the college center at the school. So I got to pick the paint and the furniture and everything in that college center, and create a premium feel and experience even for students. And that's what I think, that's what you try to do in your business too. So I was able to transfer and kind of connect that.
Yeah, I remember it was like decked out.
Yeah.
I was like shocked. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that I remembered that, because like you mentioned, working in your 9 to 5 job in your business, and how to make sure that energy is sort of matched a little bit. And I think it was amazing how you brought you into it and designed the space. I mean, you had pictures and all type of stuff on the walls. It felt like a totally different place than I had ever seen.
I had like a tea tray. I mean, and students would come in and just want to hang out, and same thing in my business now, my practice. I think what distinguishes me, what keeps, the flow of clients, is I really create an experience for for clients. Like, it's not just, and I don't treat it as just a social service. I treat it as a business where I'm really thinking about and speaking to the needs of my audience, my clients, so that's really key. And then I think, lately I've been having talks with my kids about just the changes that are going to be happening.
Yeah.
And this last, a very, very logistical thing, this past couple months, I have intentionally, the money that I would get from kind of that check, I have just pretended that it's not even, I put it away, I save it, and I just have pretended that I don't even have that anymore, because it's important to start feeling what it's like, to have even feel those financial shifts when you make that change. So, and then thinking about, okay, who is the woman? Okay, now you're going to have this freedom.
Yeah.
So who is that woman who has the freedom to not have to go to that 9 to 5? What does she do? Does she get up and go to yoga first thing in the morning? So really mapping out kind of who that woman, who that person is, and starting to step into her even before you make the transition, so it becomes kind of a smooth transition.
Yeah, so you incorporated those little things so that when the time comes and you actually take the next step and you're only working in your business, it doesn't feel like a stark difference.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm used to this. I've felt this before. It feels familiar.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people are missing when they do take that leap without sprinkling those things that make it feel like it's a congruent transition. And like I said at the beginning, I think for you, it wasn't really like a big old leap. It just was like the natural next step, which brings me to what I want to ask you about, which was, how did you know it was the right time? Because you said last year, that's when you were kind of getting the feels a little bit, but what type of hints or things were showing up that made you feel confident that, you know what, it's time? And how did that play out when it was time for you to go to your job and say, hey, this is, this is my last day, or, how did you work that out?
Yeah. Well, it starts to feel like you're kind of cheating on your job. It's kind of like an icky, I think, just truthfully, it's like, it's gotten to that point at my day job, just where in good integrity, I can no longer stay there, because I'm not showing up or serving at the same capacity any longer. My heart and my everything is ready to give, to be in this other lane. And then I got girlfriends. I work really, I don't know if you know Jada Sellner. She's a really great friend of mine. And I have friends who are just like, girl, it's time. You should have left 2 years ago, and it's true. Like, if there's any regret, it's like, I really should have done this, a while ago, and trusted and all that. So that's really, I think, part of it. And then I'm turning 40 this year.
Yeah.
I'm turning 40, and I am all about, just living your most authentic, I know it's cliche, but it's like living your most authentic, best self. And I cannot go into 40 and still be in this situations environment that is not aligned with like my potential and, just kind of where I know I need to be. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And so it was not only the fact that you felt like you were cheating on your day job, but your heart wasn't in it. And you felt like, I'm not really able to show up because there's another way in the world that I want to show up. So that was the first one. And then the second one was the girlfriend saying, you should have done that a long time ago. And then that's why I love having that community, because they're there to call you out on some BS that you've been telling yourself, and to kind of motivate you and to kind of push you, which is amazing to have that type of pressure. But I think what you did was the right thing for you, because when it comes for you taking that step, it's on you, right? And you have your kids. And so I mean, I love that, but it's just like, I think the way you still did it was beautifully, and you did it when the time was right for you, you know, even if if a group of women were like, just do it, it's your time. But if you don't feel it in here, and that's
Yeah.
all about living in alignment, right?
Yeah.
To your values and kind of what feels right.
Yeah.
And,
And then, you know, I've had a couple really cool opportunities like come my way where it's like, oh, you know, it definitely, I feel like I'm moving into that other realm of things, just whether it's like a speaking opportunity or, you know, the clientele that you're working with, like things are starting to tell me,
yeah.
you know, you gotta move,
Yeah.
you
Like
know?
move your feet, right?
Yes. So I think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So your last day is
May 31st.
May 31st. So that's
Yes.
coming up pretty
Yes.
quickly here.
Yeah.
What type of emotions have you been experiencing as you know that date is inevitable? It's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
You know, what type of things show up every day for you that you want to talk about?
I think just coming back to the scarcity mindset, you know, I think many people can relate to like waking up, just your body waking up at 4 a.m, like, holy shit, am I gonna, like, is this gonna be okay kind of thing, you know? And it's really a practice of rewiring that and understanding that, you know, as far as money and resources, it's energy. There's an abundance out there to be had. It's really just keeping yourself, you know, just, I guess, checking that fear um, and staying in that more playful, creative
Yeah.
state of mind so that you can create and maintain those opportunities for growth. So it's scary. It's scary to think about. Uh, and you know, I think just staying connected to my friends, my
Yeah.
girlfriends, you know, prayer, meditation. These are all things that are necessary, I think, to be able to be okay. And then, you know, just um, trusting. So far, I've done okay. Like,
Yeah.
I have not, just looking at the evidence, you know, like pulling back and saying, okay, what's true about this situation? The
Yeah.
truth is, we haven't been on the streets.
Yeah.
We haven't gone without eating. You know, I've always been able to make it happen. And for the women out there, you know, who are in this position, you know, take stock of that. Stop and like really look at, you know, look at what you've done up to this point. Look at what you've done. And are those fears that you've had, are they real, imagined?
Yeah.
And if they're imagined and you just keep imagining them, then it's energy that you're taking away from the thing that you're supposed to be creating and doing, you know. We can't afford to lose that energy. So I'm just trying to stay very mindful of that.
Yeah, and it seems like you're trying to stay grounded in the midst of this transition. And I love the acronym for fear: false evidence, false evidence appearing real, right? And I think that when we stop and take inventory of what could be the worst that can happen, and really mapping out what would you do if A happened, if B happened, if C happened. I think when we get real with our fear and just try to manage it, not to be fearless, but to just manage it and say, you know what, let's look at this from an objective point of view. What would happen if this were to happen? And I think that will alleviate a little bit of anxiety and stress, having that backup plan, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for having the plan A and being 100% committed, but sometimes things happen that are unexpected, and just having that, you know, running in the background, just so you feel like you can take that next step, that you know you've done good up until now. If things keep going well, you should be okay. And it sounds like you're really trusting your ability to be who you need to be, and to continue to work in that manner and take care of your family. So that's just beautiful to watch.
Yeah, thank you. And you as well. I mean, I think like you had shared earlier, it's just about knowing when you can show up. You know, there are times when you aren't on at your best.
Oh
You know
yeah.
what I mean? And I think really kind of having a game plan for for what you do when you're living or working while depressed, or living and working while anxious, or living and working while scared, because you still got to live and work.
Yeah.
The game plan for how you do both of those things, and kind of exist and not fold, under that. So.
And I have yet to come across an entrepreneur who has not felt down or question what they were doing, or did I make the right decision? Even when things go well, you're still like, did I really make the right decision at the right time? So we can question ourselves. And I think we, especially people who are taking the leap, or who have taken the leap, or the next step, which I like to call it, just having that confidence that you're going to be okay, and not being in that scarcity mindset, like you mentioned, is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who has been building their business for a while? They've got the foundation there, and it's time for them to take that next step. Like, you're the girlfriend who's like, you should have did this 2 years ago, right?
Right.
What would you say to someone? They've got the foundation, they've got, clients, or they're building their business, and they would be okay, but they're having a challenge, or they just don't have the courage to just, what would you tell them? You've been through this, and you're fresh in it. It's not like we're talking about you left your job 5 years ago, it's like you are in this. And I think that's why talking to you was so powerful. It's like, you're not too far ahead. You're just right in that space where you have so much knowledge and so much wisdom that you can pass on to people, because you're at that pivotal point. So what would you tell them?
Well, first I would buy them a copy of a book, which is kind of dark, but it's a classic, The 5 Greatest Regrets of the Dying. Have you heard of that one?
Yep.
And, one of the 5, it's this nurse who spends a lot of time with people in their last days. And she kind of sees this pattern in some of the regrets of people that have passed on. And one of them was, I wish I would have pursued that passion, or that thing that I really wanted to do. And it's not lost upon me that, just life's impermanence, and that, we're not guaranteed time. And so, that creates an urgency, basically. It really calls you to think about, what would I change, basically, if I had a year left to live? What would I change? What would I start saying no to, yes to, that kind of a thing, It's really, really important, I think, for us to remember that. I think sometimes we just think we got time and time. That's not the case, gosh. Back to our Marie Forleo. She always says, clarity comes through action. So you'll never know really what you're capable of, or what the next best move is, unless you just take the leap and you do it. And if like in my situation, that you have been planting seeds, right, and you trust that you've done it the smart, kind of focused way, then the only person left that's going to get in the way is you. So there's no one else to blame. There's no one else it's just you, And then I would say, don't take yourself so seriously. I intentionally am watching stand-up comedy, Dave Chappelle, I intentionally watch just things that remind me, like, you are not all that serious. Like, there are other people in a similar situation. And I do try to read kind of the success stories of people who've done it, and remind me that it's going to all be okay, but it's just not that serious at the end of the day. So.
And that's just that tact, or that strategy right there, is not taking things seriously. It feels just so deceivingly simple. It's so simple, and we can tell ourselves, but we have to put things into practice, like you're saying, watching comedy and things like that. And I agree. I started off just, wanting to have fun with this and just enjoying the journey, and even the struggles and the setbacks and the tears and the anxiety and the stress and the burnout. And it's just like, I always kept to just have fun, and things are going to be okay. Enjoy it. And even for me, who has like a really serious lust for life, very enthusiastic, I bring high energy to everything. Even for me, I forget not to take things so seriously. So that's one that I've struggled with. Definitely. We kind of get into this, and then things become super rigid, and it just kind of takes away the fluidity of things. Right.
Yeah. 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 And, lastly, I would say just tell people, start to tell people this is what's going to happen. Because the more you say, oh yeah, my last day is this day, or this is when I'm going to do this, then it starts to live out there, and then you can't deny it anymore. So just telling, I guess, kind of speaking it aloud, and yeah.
You speak it in existence, speak it into existence, because when you tell someone there, like you said, it makes it real, right?
Yeah, definitely. And after a while, people start holding you accountable. Like, you've been talking about this for like 3 years now. So are you going to do it or not? So
It becomes embarrassing, right?
yes, it does.
You're like, you don't want to go on Facebook, you don't want to go on Instagram. You're just like,
so, and I'm really, just so proud of you too, even your show, right? Because it's like, you've been wanting to do it, and
yeah.
you knew, I got to do this at some point.
Yeah, it's been on that tab since like 2014, and people have even clicked there. And I at the very beginning, I'd put like coming in, I don't know, 2015, and then it went spring, and then it was just like the years. I just I had to keep changing the year.
Yeah,
and people were emailing me saying, "Hey, I can't see the videos," and I'm just like, but I didn't want to take it down though, because
right.
if I would have taken it down, it would have felt like it wasn't real. So
yes,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow. That was funny. Tamika, thank you so much again for sharing this very important moment in your life with us. I know that you're in the mix of it, and the fact that you were able to take the time to share your experiences, I think is going to help so many people, because I think it's important that we show people doing things differently. And I've seen people who have taken the leap and there was no net, and they've fell to the floor and then had to go back for, their next plan. And then sometimes it does work for people, but for many of us, when you have your family and you have things that are important to you, it's vital to think strategically and to sprinkle those seeds and to grow organically and slowly, and understand that you're in it for the long haul. And so that when it comes that time for you to say goodbye to your 9-to-5 job and leave, it doesn't feel as intimidating or scary. And I think something that you had said, having that paycheck and kind of acting like you didn't even get it, not really touching it. I think that was something that was eye-opening for me. Like, wow, like that one thing right there. If you're in your 9-to-5 job and you're trying to take that next step, you just putting that paycheck away, that's going to make you want to work harder in your business. And it's just, you shared so much. Yeah, you shared so much. So I just want to thank you for being here with me and opening up and sharing all of this.
Thank you so much for having me. And this was a new experience for me. So I'm just this is one of those kind of real-time moments of where you're planting the seeds shows up later, right? Because I met you, and this is a really kind of exciting new thing for me to even be able to talk to you. So this is another one of those little signs,
Yes.
And I really appreciate you for that.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right. So I would love to hear from you. What challenges have you faced as you've been thinking about taking that leap, or I like to say that next step in leaving your 9-to-5 job? What's your single biggest insight that you're taking away from this conversation? Did we say anything that cause you to have like a mindset shift in the way you approach your work and work on your business? I'd love to hear from you. Did you like this video? If you did, then share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. As you're out there doing your work in the world, remember to have fun, live free, and feel fabulous. I'll see you next time on Bloom TV. Bye.
Bye.
Are you on the VIP list? If not, you're missing out. Head to noellebloom.com now and sign up to get free exclusive content to help you create a business and live fabulous.